Since ancient times, in a certain kingdom, there was a black cat secretly in love with a white cat, who had royal blue eyes and was curled up on a golden throne. This is when the story begins. A girl with pure angel wings and platinum blonde hair flew straight to the sky, determined not to let dark magic take over the ancient language. In a peaceful village, a boy with black hair tinged with red was preparing for a hunting trip to gather food. As he walked, Astora gazed dreamily at the blotchy black clouds in the sky, listening to advice from his elders. Suddenly, an uncle in a panicked state ran over, loudly announcing that monsters were attacking the village. Following the adults' instructions, the boy led a group of 3 young children to seek refuge in a cave on a hill. During their escape, one of the 3 children stumbled, causing Astora to pause. While he was attending to the fallen child, a giant scorpion-like creature attacked. The boy tried to fight it with a knife he carried, but the creature's tough skin prevented him from doing any more than helplessly watching the first child pass away in pain. He carried a girl and continued running to cling to life, but the monstrous creature caught up. Another child was sacrificed, entrusting Astora with his sister in the hope that he would protect her. From 4, they were reduced to just the last half-child and the boy as they reached the refuge amidst grave danger. Hope did not last long when he took the girl to seek help, his voice echoing alone in the silent space. Tragically, all the villagers had perished in the earlier battle with the monstrous creatures. With only primitive farming tools as weapons, how could they have hoped to survive against the enormous beasts with devastating strength? Now, only the boy was fortunate enough to survive the disaster, and the once laughter-filled village was left with only one lonely soul. The sky suddenly turned grim, and the rain weighed heavily on the sorrow of those left behind. Skiers, an elderly knight with silver hair, was on his way to search for other villages struck by the cruel monstrous creatures. He accidentally discovered Astora digging graves for the tormented souls cruelly murdered. According to Astora, the nearby villages also failed to escape the clutches of the monstrous creatures, showing no signs of life. By now, Astora had dug graves to the point of near exhaustion, his hunger unknown, but when he received a loaf of bread from Skiers, Astora devoured it like a starving tiger. After calming his spirit, the two sat and talked for a long while. Astora recounted that he was originally a nameless, ageless child taken in by the villagers. The country he had lived in was ruled by someone called the Dark King. Astora complained to Skiers about whether the king still cared about justice to allow such freedom for the monstrous creatures to rampage. When asked about justice, Astora's eyes showed a determination filled with a desire for peace and happiness, wishing to bring happiness to everyone. His response made Skiers feel that the child before him was still too naive. Perhaps that's why he had traded his health, putting all his effort into providing a resting place for those who had passed away. Astora continued digging until he felt as if he had pierced the heavens, the rhythmic sounds of his digging seeming to perpetuate the villagers' departure, which neither improved Astora's condition nor held any meaning for his future. A sword was thrown in front of him by the old soldier, who wanted Astora to stand and fight rather than keep running away, that he must become strong to protect them, not just here to assist in their final rituals to return to the earth. Astora then understood that only he could realize his own ideals and affirmed his determination to protect them to the end. As if realizing something profound, he stood up and countered every strike from Skiers, surprisingly knocking Skiers' sword away, which delighted the old soldier. Before the veteran stood someone with great potential to succeed the Dark King whom he was seeking. The sword, symbolizing leadership, was handed to Astora by Skiers, who told him to go to the capital, to the large mansion, and claim himself as the Dark Prince, the successor to the Dark King, striving to gain the trust of the Knight Valis to take care of him. Skiers wished for Astora to use his era to change this flawed world. The moment Astora's tear fell, a halo appeared within him, affirming his position as the Chosen One, and the Dark King officially departed from this world to reach the Sea of Bliss. Iris, the girl with white hair along with soldiers from the kingdom of Shiro, was determined to expel the demons from the darkness. Iris is the queen of the kingdom of Shiro, and after temporarily repelling the demons, all the soldiers were allowed to rest and prepare thoroughly before facing the dark invasion once more. Meanwhile, Iris, deep in thought, realized that the embodiment of the Dark King was growing stronger and that the Shiro army might suffer in the next confrontation. Alone in her power, she knew it would be difficult to resist later. which is perhaps why the soldiers were urged to train more meticulously for each battle than ever before. On his journey to find the mansion of the Dark King, Astora encountered a mysterious knight and was attacked by him. In that critical moment, he realized it was Valus, whom Skiers had mentioned before he passed away. Introducing himself as the Dark Prince, the successor to the late King Valus immediately recognized him and led Astora to the mansion as Skiers had instructed before his death. The kingdom of Shiro, currently preparing to face a disaster, saw Iris, its leader, unable to rest, always maintaining readiness to face the darkness at any moment. The sorcerer Shima came to comfort the spirit of the queen, who thought that the kingdom of Kiro only aimed at the ancient language. But Iris did not think so. She believed it was because the king of the Dark Kingdom had suddenly gone mad, destroying everything uncontrollably until the Dark King's throne was succeeded, after which the peace of the kingdoms would naturally be restored. Their conversation was interrupted when soldiers informed Iris of Baal, an army attacking the western capital. Hearing that the western capital, Medes, was facing the first storm named Baal, Iris, burdened with the responsibility of leading the kingdom, her white wings unfurled in the dark, quiet night sky, headed straight to the place where she would face the imminent danger. Realizing that their queen was restless, the strongest soldiers and sorcerers of the kingdom hurriedly followed Iris to the western capital. On the other side, Medes Baal, a formidable demon, was destroying the beautiful capital city of Shiro, wreaking havoc merely for his own amusement. The kingdom's soldiers launched magical attacks and sharp arrows, but these were no more effective against Baal's thick skin than ant bites. He mercilessly struck down life after life, as the soldiers of the capital lay on the brink of death. At this critical moment, the Elven King Atlantia, wielding high-level magic, controlled spirits to timely intercept the deadly claws of Baal, fortunately saving the lives of the soldiers. He continuously used magical techniques that he had honed over hundreds of years of arduous training to hold back the vicious monster. During that time, Shiro's soldiers on their way to reinforce Medes encountered trouble when they unexpectedly came across the Dark Army. However, the soldiers from Kuro harbored no malice towards Shiro's troops. They were ordinary people who immediately laid down their weapons and surrendered. Yet, a shadow seemed to consume both their bodies and souls, causing these innocent men to lose their reason and attack. Both sides found themselves in a precarious situation. Atlantia continued to launch devastating attacks using the power of the spirits against the formidable Baal. But Baal's terrifying strength was undeniable. Each strike from the spirits wielded by Atlantia was like a thunderous hammer from the sky, shaking the earth, yet the monster casually deflected each move with ease. The fierce demon uncompromisingly counterattacked, each blow deadly and ruthless. When Baal exerted a powerful strike, the overwhelming force was too great for the three spirits who had joined forces to form a sturdy magic shield, which could not withstand his attack. At this moment, as Iris witnessed her people fall painfully one by one, her hatred for evil flared like a fierce blaze. Enraged, Iris with her bright wings soared towards Baal with her sharp sword, while the soldiers of the Shiro kingdom also had to face the innocent peasants manipulated by the darkness. They lost all sense of awareness and mindlessly followed evil's command, continuously attacking the soldiers. On the other front, Iris was still confronting Baal, unleashing a series of ancient techniques, but fighting her seemed merely a pastime for Baal, satisfying his cruel amusement. As the situation became increasingly dire, Iris decided to use all the power of the ancient language, but Atlantia stopped her because the ancient progenitor could no longer withstand the pressure. Feeling that no one there was a worthy opponent, Baal turned his back and left, leaving the crowd dazed. After the crisis, the sky brightened again with dawn's light, bringing hope to the entire Shiro kingdom. Iris and the soldiers supported each other in restoring their devastated capital. In the Kingdom of Darkness, a goblin who thought the war with Shiro was pointless was immediately killed by the king of Kuro. He believed that the blue sky did not deserve to exist, as ultimately, everything must succumb to eternal night, and it was an unwritten rule that the residents of Kuro must obey the darkness. For him, the coexistence of Shiro and Kuro in this world was unacceptable. When darkness dominated, the Dark Army would rest, and he felt that the new era had become meaningless. What he wanted to see was the usefulness of the successors. When Valus returned from the Kingdom of Darkness, Astora requested Valus to teach him swordsmanship to enhance his own strength. However, the experienced knight who had served alongside many kings thought that Astora still lacked too much knowledge to compete for the next kingship. Vows not only had the responsibility of training soldiers in swordsmanship, but also played a significant role in honing the rough gems of the nation. Although very strict in teaching, Vows still affectionately trained Astora, thus polishing his talent more each day. Moreover, Astora had a heart that radiated warm rays of light, and he helped the kingdom's residents rebuild their wealth and homes. In a short period, Astora managed to disarm Vows, proving that from a boy who could only helplessly watch his loved ones die painfully at the hands of demons, he had become stronger than ever before. He trusted Astora with an outfit that Skiers had worn in his youth. In the barren lands of Kiro, the Dark Soldiers and Groza, the princess of the kingdom, were on their way searching for potential successors. While she was complaining about the arduous journey on this impoverished land, monsters suddenly attacked Groza. However, with the strength of one of the country's leaders, she made those devils unaware of their own limits vanish from the world. While the soldiers were still in awe of her proficient skills, Groza momentarily lost her guard and was attacked by a remaining beast with sharp claws wanting to take her life. Suddenly, a young man with extraordinary swordsmanship appeared and effortlessly delivered a deadly blow, killing the remaining beast. Behind that figure was indeed Astora, who had now become a strong knight, thanks to the months of rigorous training and accumulating sword skills with Vows. At this moment, Groza seemed to be captivated by the young man before her, seemingly forgetting the reason she had traveled to this barren land. While dreamily watching Astora's figure gradually moving away from her, Groza was urged by the soldiers to hold on to the young man because he was the person she had been searching for all this time. After both of them entered a small tavern in the capital, Groza proposed a challenge for Astora to compete against other contenders in the kingdom to win the Great Sword of Kiro, and Astora readily agreed to the princess's wish. At the next table, a young man with strikingly red hair and sharp eyes was sipping his drink and had overheard the entire conversation between the two. In the kingdom of Shiro, Iris, with a melancholic gaze, was sitting on the golden throne, feeling a constant remorse about the unjust departure of her subjects from Shiro in the fierce battle against the demon ball. As the leader of the nation, she blamed herself for her inadequacies in letting lives fall into the hands of death. Noticing her queen sinking into deep thought, Shima approached to comfort her, helping Iris feel somewhat relieved, while also asking for permission to go to Medes to re-establish the defenses of the capital. During Shiro's peaceful times, as the sun began to rise, the warm dawn light illuminated the focal point where the queen stood praying for the well-being of her people. Shima joined her to share this precious moment. The two women had a serious conversation about the responsibilities of a monarch and decided to support each other on the path to ruling the kingdom. Near the tower that emitted a bright light was the residence of the White Witch, where Shima and Iris showed their respect to the sage. The succession of the queen's throne made Iris and Shima feel a bit anxious. Despite the great responsibility of replacing the leader of the kingdom, the two maintained their pure and naive spirits. Iris frolicked like a young girl in the forest picking wild vegetables for dinner with Shima's family. The cozy dinner atmosphere filled with laughter was brief until Fios kindly took Iris home safely. Still contemplative, Iris pondered the significance of a monarch's role in leading the people. Although Fios did not have a clear answer, he did not hesitate to show his respect and desire to be the sword that protects the queen. Against the peaceful backdrop of the poetic cliff, with the wind blowing through Iris's soft hair as she stood alone in thought, suddenly dark shadows appeared beneath the white clouds attacking her. Iris quickly used the power of the cleansing chant to banish these shadows. In the clear blue sky, a voice made Iris understand that the real role of a queen is to bring kingdoms together. Despite facing loneliness, one must overcome it. Meanwhile, in the mansion of the Dark King Astora, a representative of the Skiers lineage was participating in a contest to claim the title of the Dark Prince of the kingdom. Vows decided not to accompany Astora to the tournament, fully trusting in the abilities of the knight he had trained. He had no concerns about Astora's current strength. At the tournament venue, numerous individuals with extraordinary skills gathered to compete for the Grand Sword Kiro. The first round, held in an arena filled with dangerous creatures, determined that only the two who remained standing would advance to the final match. As the creatures were released, each candidate showcased their talents. Some were adept in magic, while others were skilled archers, effortlessly dispatching the creatures with a single shot. During a moment of oversight, a female mage's fire magic failed to kill a demon. Having witnessed the devastation caused by these beasts before, Astora could not stand idly by and watch others get harmed again. His decisive action fortuitously saved the mage, but also drew the attention of all other contestants in the arena. When a giant demon with superior strength was released, it instantly defeated all present contestants. With the rigorous training from Vows, Astora needed only one sword strike to defeat the formidable demon, making him one of the 3 remaining contestants. The red-haired competitor, Heir, noticed another ninja in the arena planning to attack Astora from behind. He ruthlessly took down the dishonorable opponent, securing a spot in the final round for both of them. During the rest period before the next round, Heir criticized Astora for saving the weaker competitors earlier. He believed that one does not necessarily need to save others to become a king, arguing that the weak should only save themselves by becoming stronger. However, Astora disagreed, his warm heart rejecting Heir's viewpoint. He preferred to become a king by different means rather than abandoning others. In the final round, as the start of the match was announced, Heir aggressively attacked Astora like a storm. Nonetheless, with his strength and physique carefully honed, Astora easily knocked Heir's sword away. Unwilling to accept Astora's ideal of protecting the weak, Heir picked up his sword, determined to settle the score once more. In the end, Astora emerged victorious, earning Heir's complete admiration and respect for his skills. Astora received the Grand Sword Kuro and officially became the Dark Prince. Vows, who was waiting outside, approached Astora to ask him to deliver an important letter to the kingdom of Shiro on behalf of the heir to the throne. Astora looked up at the vast sky with a satisfied expression about something. On the boat carrying Astora to the kingdom of Shiro, the Kuro soldiers, while refueling, sang aloud. The wooden boat sped up, piercing through the white clouds before Astora's eyes, revealing the beautiful land of Shiro, which he had never seen before. Heir and Groza feared that he would face danger upon arriving in this strange land, while the 2 countries were still at war. Heir then suggested that he disguise himself as a special envoy, while Astora would act as a bodyguard to ensure the safety of the unofficial king, because if any mishap occurred, the envoy would be targeted first. At that time, the boat had docked, and Vows was the one who directly welcomed Astora's group. He suspected that the representative from Kuro had come to this beautiful kingdom with ill intentions. Heir, very astutely, immediately understood the situation he was facing and explained to Vows that the people of Kuro themselves did not desire war. It was just that no one could stand up against the Mad King. Thanks to his diplomatic skills, Heir quickly convinced Vows and was led into the royal palace of Shiro. On the way to the palace, Astora felt extremely comfortable because Shiro was a country filled with peace everywhere. What he witnessed there matched his ideal of a kingdom filled only with happiness. However, Astora and Heir were scrutinized by the locals as they were foreigners. Entering the grand royal palace, when Iris approached the throne, Astora was instantly smitten with her at first sight. Iris, after reading the letter, denied the possibility of reconciliation between the 2 kingdoms, arguing that the atrocities caused by the darkness were too great to forgive. Heir quickly explained the reason for the appearance of those demons. In the kingdom of Kuro, it was also inevitable to face attacks from them because the king of this kingdom was too chaotic, only wanting to destroy everything. However, Iris believed that once the biggest obstacle, Baal, was defeated, the next target the king of Kuro would aim for would be the kingdom of Shiro. Astora, from the sidelines, quietly disagreed with this notion, confident that once he succeeded the throne, such unfortunate conflicts would no longer occur. The reign of the old king was coming to an end, and he wanted to establish a lasting relationship with Shiro. However, the leaders of the kingdom of Shiro found it hard to believe the proposal of the Dark King. Iris decided she would provide an answer in a few days. Meanwhile, back in the kingdom of Kuro, while the envoy was facing dangers, the soldiers were jokingly giving each other nicknames and were consequently punished by Groza, who made them clean the boat. Suddenly, Groza was urgently summoned back to the royal palace, indicating that Kuro was preparing for a devastating war. Astora and Heir were taken to rest in the palace, and before Vows left, Astora asked him about the King of Light, but was rebuffed by Vows, who thought Astora, being a commoner, was unworthy of asking about the kingdom's leader. As night fell, noticing that the Prince of Darkness was behaving unusually, Heir understood Astora's rushed desire to bring peace to Kuro. He thought that Shiro only considered themselves right and Kuro wrong, and that the King of Light might want to turn the situation in their favor. However, Astora immediately dismissed Heir's thought, recognizing a difference in Iris compared to the others in Shiro, as any decision on the treaty would depend on her. Iris, on the other hand, was deep in thought about her choice, deciding to act as a leader to ensure the safety of her people. Before dawn, key figures from both countries gathered in the royal palace. Iris asked Astora about his thoughts as a citizen of Kuro on defeating Baal before deciding to sign the treaty. Astora managed to convince Iris with his answer, stating his desire for the people of Kuro to be protected from Baal through the treaty between the two kingdoms. The first rays of sunlight flooded into Shiro, signaling the beginning of a new era. Iris agreed to sign the treaty, and both kingdoms would join forces to defeat the demon Baal and protect their people's peace. Iris, spreading her white wings in the blue sky, prepared to head to the kingdom of Kuro to defeat the wicked demon Baal. Her heart, the heart of the queen, constantly pondered the young man with black hair, thinking that he truly was the prince of the kingdom of darkness. Meanwhile, on her side, Theos was anxiously waiting, concerned for his queen. Shima, having returned from the capital of Medes, was able to grasp the foreign relations situation between the two kingdoms when she reviewed a letter from the kingdom of Kuro. She understood that both kingdoms had agreed to a truce to join forces in defeating Baal. During this time, Shiro would have the right to keep the two envoys as hostages to demonstrate Kuro's goodwill. Meanwhile, Iris had flown to the kingdom of darkness. Beyond the white clouds lay a land shrouded in dark hues, where the people of Kuro continued their daily lives and commerce, unaware of the looming threat. Suddenly, the evil demon Baal appeared, his wing beats like powerful, destructive tornadoes. On the other side, the most elite soldiers of the kingdom of Kuro had gathered, prepared for a monumental battle. Valus, a top knight, led his army with powerful beasts to launch a preemptive strike on the evil demon who was attempting to destroy the kingdom for his amusement. However, such force was still insufficient to defeat the monster who had freely ravaged continents for thousands of years. Valus, with a pre-arranged plan, drew Baal deep into the fortress and then launched a barrage of the sharpest weapons, concentrating all firepower on the demon's massive body. The strength of the demon was no joke. All physical attacks were merely like flies to him. His thick, steel-like skin easily repelled the sharpest spears and even the strongest magic spells that Groza had honed over many years. Baal circled the kingdom's fortress with each wing beat displacing numerous elite soldiers. Overconfident in his immense power, Baal fell into a magical trap set by the wizards, with both Groza and Valus unleashing their most powerful attacks, causing earth-shattering impacts. Yet, for Baal, this was still not enough. He easily neutralized each technique and even used magic to control both of them. As Valus and Groza found themselves in dire straits, the Dark King, a man of ruthless character who did not care about his own guards, appeared just in time to rescue them. He enveloped Baal's body in darkness, matching the wicked monster in a battle of equal prowess. On the other side, Baal was not outmatched. He used his ultimate skills to blow away the darkness of the king. The tide turned when Baal, with his brutal strength feeling triumphant, was once again restrained by magical chains. But this time, it wasn't the wizards from the kingdom of Kuro. It was Iris, with her white wings amidst the mysterious darkness, using the power of ancestral magic to hold back a struggling Baal. He did not expect that the two kingdoms would cast aside their pride and ally to defeat him. The Dark King decided not to destroy Baal, but instead to seal him into the Tartarus, ending the millennium-long battle with the evil demon. Back in the capital of the kingdom of Shiro, Heir and Astora were meeting with the sorceress Shima. Heir could not help but admire her beauty upon seeing her. Shima also understood that the people of Kuro did not want war, but they were compelled to fight due to the king's commands. Astora, looking at the sky through a window, suddenly rushed out of the capital while Iris, having returned to her kingdom after the battle with Baal, was staggering from the enormous strain of using the ancient language's power, which left her unable to stand any longer. As she began to fall, Astora caught her by her slender shoulders. Theos and Shima immediately checked on the queen, but found no external injuries. Shima quickly realized that Iris had overused the power of the ancient language and immediately took her to the palace for care. Iris was brought back to the capital in an exhausted state, and Shima was deeply concerned for the queen, spending day and night using healing spells to aid her recovery. Meanwhile, Edders and Astora were chatting in their quarters about the beauty of the leading ladies of Shiro, with Edders admitting that Shima quite suited his taste. Theos stopped by their room to bring the good news that the treaty had been smoothly executed. Astora, unable to hide his concern for the Queen of Light, inquired about her health. Unlike the first time when Theos considered him a mere servant unworthy of asking about Iris, the atmosphere was less tense, and Theos responded to his question after a brief hesitation. Theos came to see that the young guard, Astora, was not as bad as he had initially thought. Having completed their mission, Astora and Edders decided to visit the Light King one last time before returning to their kingdom. After the devastating battle, the people of Kuro resumed their busy lives, striving to rebuild their homes and capital. At this time, Groza was on her way home after a long day of fighting when she unexpectedly encountered Valis and received a new assignment to deliver a letter to the Kingdom of Light once again. Despite her exhaustion, Groza felt a surge of excitement at the prospect of seeing the Prince of Darkness, for whom she had harbored secret affection for so long. She immediately set off for the Kingdom of Shiro. The Kingdom of Shiro had returned to its usual tranquil state, with two bear cats playfully frolicking in the clear blue sky. Unfortunately, they collided with a tower and were injured. In the royal palace, the successful ceremony was extremely satisfying, and Iris humbly refrained from claiming any credit for herself. The queen believed that she only played a minor part, and that the kingdom of Kuro had suffered the most. Edders then explained about Kuro, a place where magical beasts coexist with humans, primarily relying on the shadows. He expressed his hope that the queen would not worry about the damages this time. Iris blessed the souls lost in the battle with Baal, hoping they would be reborn as pure spirits. Edders admired the queen's noble spirit, promising to propose to the cruel king that he permanently end the war between the two kingdoms, despite the risk to his own life. Meanwhile, the ship carrying Groza from Kuro had docked, and soldiers were sent to receive her. Upon arriving at the royal palace, Groza immediately handed a letter from the Dark King to Iris. While the queen was intently reading the important letter, Groza noticed her beloved's gaze was directed towards the Light King, making her feel a pang of jealousy. The content of the letter was promptly accepted by Iris, as it promised a temporary peace between the two kingdoms. The ceasefire proposed by the Dark King aimed to restore the nation after the devastating battle with Baal. While waiting to write a response, Iris decided to personally show the guests from Kuro around the beautiful capital. Descending into the city's garden with Theo, Shima's younger brother, the boy with blue hair enthusiastically welcomed the queen and his siblings. Initially cautious of the strangers from Kuro, Theo soon felt more at ease upon learning they were good people. Theos wondered why the boy was there. Theo quickly remembered he was treating the injured bear cat that had collided with the tower. He placed one hand on the tree and the other on the injured bear cat. A halo of light from the tree gradually healing the pitiful creature. Knight Theos was amazed by the boy's magical talent, having mastered the healing magic taught by Shima in a short time. Before long, the injured bear cat was healed. It respectfully crossed its paws to thank Theo before flying away, highlighting the difference Groza felt between the bear cats of the two kingdoms. In Kuro, the bear cats were known only for causing trouble and stealing goods from merchants, yet their charm was undeniable. Astora, with his warm gaze, joked and laughed with Queen Iris, which made Groza feel incredibly jealous. Noticing that the attire from Kuro was entirely black while Shiro's was purely white, Groza suggested that they should try swapping their outfits. Edders and Theos were the first to exchange clothes, and their new looks were highly praised by the ladies. When it was the turn of the three ladies to try on each other's outfits, Groza chose the queen's dress to try on. However, in the kingdom of Shiro, it was forbidden for outsiders to wear the king's attire. Understanding this noble tradition, Groza decided against trying on the beautiful dress, and instead had Iris try on her clothes. However, when Iris wore Groza's attire, the significant difference in their spirits made the clothes appear too loose on her slender frame. Groza still harbored a scheme to diminish Iris's image so that the prince would cease paying attention to her. But Shima intervened and chose to try on Groza's outfit. Outside, while the men complained about having to wait, the three ladies emerged in each other's strikingly different outfits. Edders asked Astora who he thought looked the most splendid, and Astora cleverly responded in a way that pleased all three ladies. As evening approached, Theos and Groza engaged in a chess match that was spectacular, yet Theos lost due to his lesser skill. As the evening wound down and hunger set in for the queen and Astora, Shima decided to personally cook a meal for the guests. With his adept cooking skills, a lavish dinner was soon prepared. However, Astora quickly noticed that the flavors of the dishes were quite distinct from those back home. Edders and Grossa also realized that all the food in this kingdom was much blander compared to that in Kiro. Grossa then brought out some small fish from her homeland to share, vividly highlighting the taste differences between the two kingdoms as everyone tried the dish. Everyone in Shiro found the small fish too salty, leading Iris to remark that understanding such trivial matters as food preferences was essential for the coexistence of the two kingdoms. Astora then had a sudden inspiration to pair the fish with the soup served earlier, and surprisingly, the combination balanced well, creating a flavor that both sides enjoyed. The soup pot was quickly emptied, and the fish, too, was finished, leaving only an empty jar behind. Although the meal was delicious, Fios still thought the wild vegetables Iris had picked were tastier. Astora was reminded of the wild vegetable forests in Kiro, where, without sunlight, the plants were dry and lifeless. However, he believed that the vegetables in the sun-filled kingdom of Shiro would taste much better. Iris, hearing this, excitedly proposed a trip to the forest the next morning, her eyes sparkling with joy, which captivated Astora despite Grossa's evident jealousy. Under the enchanting night sky illuminated by the moon, Astora stood thoughtful by the window. Grossa approached him, tenderly inquiring about the prince, but all Astora could see was Iris. Although feeling a sense of loss, Grossa resolved to stand by Astora for life. Iris lay on her comfortable bed, her eyes gleaming with contentment during this brief period of peace. The next morning brought warm sunshine and fresh air in the kingdom of Shiro, and Iris, along with the guests from Kiro, eagerly ventured into the forest to pick wild vegetables. The queen, though eager to lead, slowed down a bit due to not having fully recovered her strength. Soon, the group reached the area where wild vegetables were most abundant, around a great tree where the queen often gathered ingredients for delicious dishes. Edders felt that just picking ordinary vegetables would be a waste of such a beautiful day, so he suggested a vegetable picking competition in pairs. Fios and Grossa, imagining a romantic scenario of picking vegetables with their loved ones, quickly agreed. However, life does not always follow dreams, as Edders proposed pairing up one from Shiro and one from Kiro to foster diplomacy between the two nations. Grossa outwardly agreed, but internally she could only offer a forced smile, disappointed at not being paired with the prince. Fios, though agreeing to the pairing, still tried to use the excuse of needing to protect the queen in order to stay alone with her. Iris, however, quickly interrupted to instruct everyone on how to pick the vegetables safely, as some plants were very poisonous and could be dangerous if consumed. The queen demonstrated how to pick various plants, including thorny sprouts and avocado sprouts, among others. With Iris's thorough guidance, the groups quickly learned and set off to start the competition. Edders's group with Shima initially had some discord since Shima still harbored resentment towards Edders. Nevertheless, with Edders's gentle approach, the two quickly reconciled and focused on the competition. Astora and the young Theo found the first wild vegetable, but unsure if it was edible, they sought Iris's help. Iris, being very familiar with these wild plants, was praised by Astora, making her feel quite embarrassed, and she asked to join Astora's group. While picking vegetables, Iris's and Astora's hands accidentally touched, which infuriated Fios to the point where he wanted to draw his sword on Astora immediately. Grossa was also displeased, seeing the prince she loved getting too close to another lady. At this moment, Fios realized that the trust among the people of Kiro was no different than that among the people of Shiro. Grossa quickly clarified that the person she loved, the next king, was someone with a pure heart and high ideals, which she greatly admired. Fios misunderstood her, thinking she was talking about Edders. Soon, the competition concluded, and everyone gathered at the base of the great tree to summarize the results. Astora's team collected many spruce sprouts, ferns, asparagus, and bird's foot trefoil, all picked very meticulously. Edders and Shima's team harvested a lot of avocado sprouts, but perhaps a bit too aggressively. Only the team of Fios and Grossa managed to pick one edible plant, with the rest being inedible. Edders was proud that his team harvested the most in number, but ultimately, Astora's team won for collecting the greatest variety, even though their total weight was less than Edders's team. Astora felt very pleased with this brief period of peace. After the competition, everyone busied themselves preparing for cooking. Shima assigned the men to gather firewood while the women carried water. While gathering firewood, Astora suddenly realized that Theo had wandered off into the forest. He quickly joined everyone in searching for the boy. Fortunately, Astora ran into Iris, but in his haste, he tripped and pulled the queen down into a pond with him. Upon hearing from Iris that Theo had already returned to the great tree where Shima was cooking, Astora felt relieved. However, he was also embarrassed by his clumsy act, which made his face turn red. Iris, noticing his warm and kind-hearted nature, began to develop feelings for Astora. The two sat by the pond to dry their wet clothes, and after a while, they returned to the great tree. Seeing his queen getting close to someone else, Theos's jealousy intensified. The scene of everyone cooking together and preparing lunch was a picture of happiness, and soon, a delicious meal was ready. The guests from the kingdom of Kuro immediately praised the flavor of the wild plants from Shiro after their first bite. Iris, curious, asked Astora if he found the wild plants too bitter. But Astora, tasting such plants for the first time, felt that the food here was vastly different and much better than the vegetation in Kuro. The wild plants in this kingdom were not bitter like those in Kuro, which made Astora and Iris appear even closer, fueling Groza's jealousy. However, her irritation was short-lived as Theo invited her to try the wild plants, shifting her focus from her jealousy to the food, which she found lacking in saltiness. Shima, understanding the robust flavors preferred by the people from Kuro, had thoughtfully brought salt for these esteemed guests. Watching Astora and the two envoys from Kuro enjoy the dishes from Shiro heartily, Theos proposed that the two countries sign a trade treaty so that the entire Dark Kingdom could access Shiro's cuisine. Iris, a queen who cherished peace, wanted the two nations to form a friendship to live together in harmony and enjoy more peaceful moments like today. The peaceful life experience in the kingdom of Shiro has come to an end, and Edders and Astora are ready to return to their homeland. Theos, the head of the Night Order, personally bids farewell and returns the weapons to the esteemed guests. Astora and Edders decide to meet the King of Light one last time before leaving this beautiful kingdom. The ship carrying the envoys from Kuro is filled with crates of gifts from Shiro, and Groza is genuinely surprised by the kingdom's generosity. Iris has completed writing a letter requesting a trade treaty, and their time in Shiro is running short. Iris expresses a desire for the two kingdoms to soon live together in everlasting peace. Suddenly, Edders's expression changes. He believes that only a powerful country like Shiro, which receives warm sunlight and extraordinary strength from ancient languages year-round, allows its people to live in abundance and peace, whereas the dark, life-deprived kingdom of Kuro cannot accept such a tranquil life under Shiro. Iris understands the source of Edders's anger, but due to the need to maintain balance between the two kingdoms, things have always been this way. Edders, enraged by Iris's words, accuses her of justifying her power to dominate the skies. In a burst of speed, Edders attacks the queen, and the sudden assault leaves Iris's guards unable to react in time. Suddenly, a critical strike cleaves Edders in two, and Astora, with his quick reflexes, saves the Queen of Light at the last moment. However, the shocking incident leaves the onlookers unable to forgive the kingdom of Kuro once again. Theos, with rage boiling like fire, physically assaults Astora despite him just having saved the queen from the grip of death. Iris hesitates, wanting the night to stop, but the shock is too great for her to speak. Astora, powerless, is taken to prison by Theos, while Groza is still cheerfully checking the gifts from Shiro, when suddenly a soldier bursts in demanding an immediate departure, leaving Groza bewildered and unaware of what is happening. As dusk falls and darkness returns, Theos cannot contain his anger and blames himself for being foolish enough to trust the people from the kingdom of Kuro. He feels that the balance between the two countries does not exist, thinking that light knights like him will always face war. Theo, still very naive but with far-sighted views, believes that his brother is overly worried. He thinks that permanence is impossible because all humans will pass away due to old age, and the story of fighting with a neighbor cannot last forever once he realizes that apologizing and conceding can end the conflict. Growing up for him means learning to control oneself. Yet Theos still sees him as a child who cannot understand adult matters. Feeling that his brother does not value his opinions, Theo leaves disappointed despite Shima's attempts to stop him. Although Theos denies Theo's reasoning, he secretly protects these thoughts, believing that the kind-hearted boy can change this painful era. At this moment, Iris laments to the ancient languages why the two kingdoms cannot maintain peace, stating that if confronting each other is how the world works, she can no longer endure it. The ancient languages then advise the Queen of Light to decisively make decisions about what is seen as right, after which a flash of light transforms the beautiful queen into a pure white cat. Deep in the dark dungeon, Astora finally wakes up from unconsciousness, covered in wounds. He contemplates whether saving Iris was the wise choice, unaware that Edders had been assigned a secret mission by the King of Darkness, which involved switching identities with him upon arriving in Shiro. If he had not acted against Edders, the kingdom of Kuro might have received its first rays of sunlight in history. Suddenly, a beam of light emanates from outside the dark cell, and standing before him is a pure white cat. The cell door suddenly opens, and the cat seems to want Astora to follow her. Understanding her intent, Astora quickly stands and follows the white cat's steps. The prison appears abandoned, and the white cat leads Astora over the fortress walls past the guards, through the beautiful forests to a cliff where Iris often stands alone in thought. Astora was surprised to find his two swords there, suddenly illuminated by a halo emanating from the white cat, which then transformed into a magnificent gem. When the gem shattered, Iris appeared from within the halo, unconscious in Astora's warm embrace. When Iris awoke, their eyes locked and their hands intertwined. With Iris releasing the emotions she had suppressed for so long, she felt that the kingdoms could not support each other, as conflicts and wars between the two sides were constant. Astora saw the woman he loved bearing too much responsibility, and it pained him deeply. He suddenly embraced Iris, promising to always watch over and support her, regardless of any mistakes she might make. At that moment, Astora also revealed his true identity to Iris as the Prince of Darkness. Though she had already recognized him as the next king from his actions, Astora was certain to inherit the throne of the kingdom of Kuro and vowed to bring peace to this troubled world with her. The soldiers of Shiro arrived, and Astora had to end the conversation and return to his homeland. As night fell, Iris pondered about Astora in her flower garden. When Astora first arrived in the kingdom of Shiro, his actions caught Iris's attention, and she had immediately realized that this honest man was the heir to the throne of Kuro. However, his overly honest nature made her fear that Astora might find it difficult to lead the country. Fortunately, Iris had an important conversation with the Prince of Darkness by the cliffside the day before, which helped her trust him more. The demonic beasts from Kuro were appearing more frequently, both in the capital and throughout the kingdom of Shiro. After receiving information from Shima, Iris immediately ordered an increase in defenses on all fronts. Theos fell into deep thought, wanting to take a few days off to find a remedy to restore Iris's strength, which had been greatly depleted in the earth-shattering battle with Baal. Shima continuously objected because the kingdom could not afford to be without its army leader, especially when demons could invade at any time. Iris reassured Theos that she would soon recover and that the most important thing was to prepare thoroughly for the upcoming battle with the darkness. Despite Shima's objections, Theos prioritized treating the queen, but, unable to ensure the clue for the remedy himself, decided to send him on his way. Atlantis, an elf with extensive experience, was sought by Theos to find a cure for the queen. Atlantis assessed that Iris's health had deteriorated because she had used magic beyond her body's tolerance, disrupting her magical conduits which had not yet fully recovered. Normally, they would naturally heal over time, but given the short duration available to rest and the escalating disasters facing the kingdom, this was impractical. Recognizing the knight's determination beside Iris, Atlantis revealed a dangerous location deep within a cave that held a divine blessing capable of curing Iris's condition. Despite the dangers, Theos was determined to obtain this mystical medicine, as the queen tirelessly defended the kingdom. To prepare for the impending Dark Forces invasion, the most skilled group of sorcerers, led by Shiro, trained in advanced magic to create a strong barrier. However, this technique drained a significant amount of Shima's magical energy, making it unsustainable for long. Despite the fatigue overwhelming their strength, the sorcerers continued their training in the face of the looming evil. When Shima learned of Theos's disappearance, she immediately informed Iris of this urgent issue. Upon hearing the news, the queen remained undaunted, knowing Theos was seeking a cure for her and could only wish the head knight a safe return. In the depths of the dense forest, Theos and Atlantis reached the cave leading to the waterfall, where the miraculous divine light that could swiftly heal Iris was hidden. After escaping the pursuit of the Shiro kingdom by jumping onto a flying boat, Astora returned to his homeland. Although questioned about the matter with Edders, nothing significant occurred to him. Astora, having just returned, plunged into training to save both Iris and the two nations now embroiled in war. Valis realized that Astora's determination had changed after his trip to the Shiro kingdom, and the king of Kuro had issued a decree forbidding anyone from going near Shiro. In their world, the subjects of Kuro had to obey the king's commands unconditionally. In Kuro, the concepts of good and evil did not exist. A slight oversight could allow evil to immediately consume all that is good in a moment. Astora found it unusually alarming that evil was rampant, dismissing the common belief that peace would prevail once darkness overtook everything as nothing more than a childish deception. Valis, on the side, believed that deep calculations and leading the people to produce outcomes or even speculating about the future were the duties of a king, not his own. However, he indicated that if Astora ascended to the throne and needed him, he would be ready to assist at any time. Suddenly, from a distance, Groza hurried over with urgent news that the monster beasts at the front lines were too strong, and the regular army could not withstand them. The Dark King ordered Groza and the Dark Prince to deal with the arrogant monster beasts. Valis stood beside, pensive, as only he knew what the king was contemplating. Inside the capital, all the soldiers and monster beasts had assembled, with the Dark King plotting to conquer the skies and using the strongest forces of the kingdom to extinguish the light of the Shiro kingdom. Meanwhile, Astora was on his way with Groza to the location of the rampaging monster beasts when suddenly distracted. They were attacked by monsters resembling giant bees. Due to a misstep, Groza slipped and fell into a ravine. But thanks to Astora's quick reflexes, he managed to catch Groza in a perilous situation. Face to face with the prince, Groza could not hide his embarrassment. As they tried to climb out of the dark ravine, suddenly, a monster beast much larger than Astora approached. Seeing this, Groza immediately used his magical spells, and his magical arrows struck the beast's flesh. However, the beast did not seem to feel any pain, as if it had not sustained any damage. Seeing that Groza continued to attack harder, but Astora rushed forward as if to settle the score with the beast. At this time, the Shiro kingdom faced a historic battle against the darkness, with its most elite forces prepared. Theos and Atlantis had entered the cave that contained the divine light to restore the ancient magic to Queen Iris. The burden on Iris's shoulders now included not only her wings, but also the kingdom of Shiro. She commanded her troops to fight against Kuro, yet Iris herself felt like she was destroying the opponent's kingdom. Wondering if the balance was truly even, she realized she couldn't change the current situation alone and strived just to maintain it. As the Shiro troops were arrayed and ready for battle, in a dark cave without a single ray of light, Theos seemed to have reached a dead end when Atlantis pulled out an object resembling an arrowhead and pinned it to the cave's ceiling. This small object could support the large body of Atlantis. He swung and then propelled himself forward, with Theos quickly following. Ahead of them was a straight path, yet no exit was visible. At the front lines, the battle was intense. Some of the monster beasts breached the city walls, but were immediately vaporized by the powerful magic of the female sorcerer, Shima, who had returned. She reorganized the formation and divided the battle plans. Theos, running tirelessly to the point of exhaustion and heavy breathing, saw only a long dark road ahead, with time seemingly counting down on their fingertips. Atlantis pulled out a lens and, upon looking through it, discovered a hidden passage. Touching the large stone wall, Atlantis realized it was a disguised spatial gate. Theos followed him through it. The sounds of panicked citizens fleeing mixed with the clashing of swords filled the city as the beasts appeared within. Theos praised Atlantis for making it here effortlessly without using ancient language. But in reality, the power was stored in a small bottle. Atlantis threw the bottles like bombs, blowing up the stone wall, and waited for the dense black smoke obscuring their view to clear, revealing the mineral rock. Theos, struck by an idea, drew his sword and repeatedly struck the mineral rock in front of him. Each spark touching other minerals created colors. Witnessing the unpredictable transformation, Atlantia asked Theos to step back. Atlantia then took out several staffs that represented different elements and cast a spell. Gradually, a door opened, revealing a magical light within the dark depths of the cave, the divine light emanating from the center of a lake, shimmering brilliantly. Atlantia stopped an eager Theos from rushing towards the source, his eyes following a stone that Atlantia had just thrown into the lake, but continued determinedly towards the middle of the lake. For him, his own life had lost its meaning, his remaining time was counted in seconds, and more importantly, Iris could not last much longer. His armor smoked from corrosion, yet Theos did not relent and moved even closer to the divine light. A burst of white light shone, and Theos successfully obtained the divine light without any harm. Meanwhile, the enemy forces penetrated deeper into the inner city, the situation as precarious as a spear hanging overhead. Iris appeared, blasting away the battle-hungry monsters, and commanded Shima and the sorcerers to execute a series of spells. Together, they formed a circle, creating a giant shield around the kingdom. With sweat dripping from the queen's face, she staggered and fell into Shima's arms. On the other side, Theos and Atlantia had just returned from their arduous journey, immediately realizing the ominous situation as they saw the defenses right before their eyes. Inside, a trembling Iris lay on a large bed. In another development, Astora and Groza continued to battle the gigantic monster. Groza sent a bolt of electricity to support Astora, allowing him to leap and deliver a decisive blow that finished the monster. Afterward, Groza suggested they go home, and Astora, after a moment of silence, started to walk away. Groza, sensing his contemplative mood, invited him for a dinner of grilled fish. Astora responded with a look and then turned away, leaving her slightly baffled but laughing it off. During a cozy dinner by the light, with only the two of them at the large table, Groza advised him to nourish his body well for the throne. Astora, while cutting the cake, continued to doubt himself. He remembered standing with Valus, the all-powerful knight who had spoken to him about the world's nature from ancient times, where good and evil in the shadows could not be clearly separated, a place where any gap allowed darkness to expand. These thoughts held no meaning for Astora. He did not wish to understand them. Hearing him talk nonsense, and then about the promise to the Light King, Groza angrily slammed the table, stood up, moved beside him, and declared that Astora would shape the future of the kingdom, while she volunteered to stay by his side. From their first meeting, Astora had been the one Groza admired the most. A silence enveloped them, and upon realizing his response, Groza let go of him, tears brimming in her eyes. Learning that Iris was truly the one in Astora's heart, Groza ran out of the room, leaving a bewildered Astora behind, hurt by not having her sincere feelings reciprocated. Groza still vowed to always support the one she loved. Frantically, Theos ran into the room where Iris was lying and handed Shima, who was sitting beside her, the bottle containing the divine light, urging her to quickly integrate it into the queen's body. After completing the spell, it seemed that Iris had stabilized but had not yet awakened. By evening, Iris sat under the ancient language, hands clasped, whispering, remembering the warm embrace and the promise of the young dark prince, smiling wistfully, wishing to journey alongside Astora. Theos approached and reminded her not to overexert herself as the battle was drawing near. Their conversation was filled with both courtesy and heartfelt expressions, with Theos advising her to rest early. Astora was walking down the street when he overheard a vendor casually talking about a duel with Shiro, causing him to slow his steps. The vendor approached and inquired about the young man who seemed lost in thought, soon realizing that he was speaking to a prince. The commoners nearby whispered about joining the battle, noting that not only Mr. Groza, but also the prince were not allowed to wield swords. The vendor wondered if Astora was planning a rebellion, but he denied it, looking up at the colorless sky where a line of planes followed one another, hesitating and unsure about what he had just said, which did not reassure anyone. The retailer, with a wish that if Astora ever ascended to the throne, he would reduce their taxes. A group of children ran up to the prince, their eyes shining with innocence and pointing at what they considered a floating island in the sky, hopeful for victory despite Astora's visible concern and hesitation. A group of soldiers in iron armor approached, causing a little girl to hide fearfully behind Astora. They had come on orders to summon the prince, but their words and actions seemed to escort him back to the palace. Groza watched Astora's steps with a melancholy expression, sensing that something bad was about to happen. Groza decided to pack his belongings and head to the sea, while Theos considered this the last resort. Theo, furious, then advised Shima and Phios to flee when he saw no chance of victory. Despite his advice, Theo clenched his fists against his chest, believing fervently that his kingdom would never face defeat. Phios shared this belief, confident that as long as they had Iris, Shiro would never surrender. Sitting on the throne, Iris reminisced about the boy and his promise to build a new world, a world of peace. Her eyes blazing with determination and resolve. White and black, two colors that were polar opposites, one a brilliant light and the other a mysterious, dark, and cold night. The queen spread her wings, her eyes fixed on her target, moving forcefully toward her kingdom. Iris furrowed her brows and spread her pure white wings against the brilliant sky, praying that the ancestral water language would bring light to her people and kingdom to repel the darkness. A radiant halo shone brightly around the leader, with a sword pointed towards the sky as Phios and his soldiers bravely moved forward. On the city walls, the female sorceress was far from idle, joining forces to annihilate the swarm of demons attacking the kingdom from above. The number of demons surged, and from her vantage point, Iris spotted the arrival of the Dark King, deciding to confront him alone. Shima initially thought victory was possible, but the next scene left both her and her soldiers stunned. The sky was enveloped in blackness, with the demons growing stronger and more numerous, prompting a shift in their battle strategy to simply try to take down as many enemies as possible. Surrounded by a dark purple aura, Iris heard the mocking voice of the Dark King. He belittled the young woman before him, but Iris felt that whether she was alone or had others with her didn't matter. Facing him directly was the decisive factor in their fates. With her sword gleaming, Iris was determined to settle scores in this battle. The kingdom's people, panicked, only knew to follow the soldiers straight into the palace as the demons brazenly reached even the sacred continent. A soldier, his mind overtaken by darkness, convulsed and turned to strike at the civilians with his sword. Another soldier timely took down his darkened comrade, saving the innocent people. One by one, the troops lost their reason to the darkness, turning on their comrades. Shima was forced to use her magic to send them off, while simultaneously constructing a protective barrier around the cavalry and the palace. Meanwhile, Phios began to show signs of fatigue, breathing heavily but still encouraging his troops, as they would be the last line of defense for the queen. Hearing this, the demons intended to overwhelm, but Valus, the Knight of Darkness, blocked them with an outstretched arm and drew his sword to challenge Phios. The two, known as the right hands of the Light and Dark Sovereigns, engaged in a fierce battle. Elsewhere, Iris also struggled to dodge the Dark King's attacks, prompting him to scornfully declare that he was the embodiment of a power that grew over time, not some fleeting light. The outcome of the battle with him was clear. Those like him were victims of the vicious succession cycle, but he intended to destroy it to become the supreme ruler, claiming all of eternity and space. Iris was determined not to let the Dark King succeed, and their confrontation split the sky in two with intense beams of light. The shield created by Shima and the female warriors began to falter and break under the onslaught of darkness. A purple haze enveloped the minds of the cavalry, and Shima, looking up at the towering fortress, screamed in frustration as the ancestral water language had yet to grant them strength. The earth trembled violently as Phios and Valus engaged in a spectacular sword fight. Valus's taunts driving Phios to fury, yet his strength was nothing compared to the omnipotent Dark Knight. On the ground were two mighty knights, and in the sky, two kings at the extremes of the balance of power. Iris, ready to sacrifice everything, had to protect the balance of the world and destroy the Dark King. She charged forward like an arrow, but to the eternal Dark King, it was merely a child's game of dodging. Iris couldn't avoid his counterattack, taking a direct hit to the side and falling down. Shima stubbornly tried to use magic to save the severely wounded soldiers. A flicker of hope ignited only to vanish again. She collapsed to the ground in despair, then reminded herself to stay calm as it wasn't yet the time to lament. Iris, hearing these challenging words, smiled, a sliver of hope ignited in the darkest circumstances. If the ancestral language failed to work, they would resort to the power of the Fate Gear. The last members of the sorceress team gathered, the gear glowing brightly, with images of Astora and others appearing. Iris let go, tears brimming in her eyes, perhaps signaling the inevitable destruction. Shima tried to awaken the queen's spirit, but to no avail, as her calls went unanswered. Seeing the enemy overhead, filled with smug satisfaction, the female sorcerer urged her to act quickly and stop doubting. Shima bet her life on the queen, urging her to fulfill the mission of light. And a scream of agony echoed in the dark space dominated by evil as Shima writhed under the torment of darkness. Meanwhile, in the Dark Kingdom, Astora hurriedly followed a soldier's directions to the spatial teleportation gate in the capital. At the royal palace, the residence of the king who commands the Dark Kingdom, Astora heard footsteps nearby. To his surprise, he was confronted by Edders, whom he had mercilessly attacked for attempting to assault the King of Light. Edders challenged Astora, questioning why he had divided Edders's body into two, even though he had regarded Astora as a close teammate. It surprised Edders that someone not from the kingdom of Shiro would go to such lengths to save its queen. Through Edders's words, Astora realized that everything that had happened was orchestrated by the king. Not only was Astora unaware of the king's machinations, but even Valis, a knight close to him, did not know the truth of the war. Seeing Astora's persistence, Edders drew his sword and aimed it directly at him. Edders's body began to transform, his limbs turning him into a true demon. Astora charged, but it was merely a minor annoyance to his opponent. It was Edders's turn to advance, and this time, Astora unleashed a magical aura inherited from skiers, trapping Edders in black stone. Thinking he had won, Astora headed towards the palace but was blinded by strands of darkness. Edders, standing behind, mocked the prince's naivety for underestimating his power, shattering Astora's shoulder armor into fragments, with each of Edders's strikes embedding venomously into his opponent's flesh. As Edders's sword pierced Astora, it was then that Astora delivered a fatal blow, defeating the cunning and evil demon. Before stepping into eternal night, Edders did not forget to remind Astora of the true purpose behind the deceitful words of the Dark King that everyone believed. He wanted not only to destroy Shiro, but also to drag Kiro down to secure his position as the supreme ruler. Edders vanished like smoke before the prince's eyes. Astora stood up, pulling his sword from the ground, and proceeded into the palace. The soldiers ambushed at the other side of the teleportation gate were swiftly defeated by him. Astora exerted all his energy, running swiftly to the dock, simultaneously eliminating any minor demons that obstructed his path. Grossa appeared, using a barrier to destroy the airborne demons, and told Astora to leave this place to her handling, supporting him from behind so the prince she cherished could achieve his purpose. Astora ran hard to the dock only to realize that there were no more airships left. Amidst a desperate situation, a mysterious power suddenly enveloped Astora, causing him to radiate a brilliant aura as the hidden strength within him was revealed. Black wings emerged on his back, and without a moment's delay, Astora took flight, soaring through the white clouds. On the other side of the battlefield, Shima, despite her fierce resistance against the Dark King, could not escape being engulfed by darkness. Awakening after a call from another sorceress in her troop, Shima was shocked to find herself envying Iris's power of the white sorceress. At the top of the tower, Iris seemed to be repenting with the ancestral water language, seeing herself as a deceiver for not keeping her promise to Astora. Astora, with his newfound power, was now effortlessly clearing his path with each swing of his sword as he flew towards Iris. Iris had no choice but to use all the power of the ancestral water language to seal both Kiro and Shiro. The ground trembled violently. Sensing the danger, Valis retreated, running towards Shima and then rushing into the palace. The earth crumbled, and everything slowly vanished in a thick black smoke. Outside the city, Theos, who had begun to understand the situation, dropped his sword in frustration, wondering why he had fought so hard when the queen did not wait for him. The light from the ancestral language grew stronger, rapidly destroying the city and even Iris. In a daze, Astora heard the call of the one he had been waiting for. His blue eyes opened wide, but ultimately, there was no holding back. Despite Iris being buried deep in the ground, Astora risked everything to reach her. The Dark King, witnessing the collapse of heaven and earth, realized that Iris had sacrificed the ancestral water language and the aerial continent to defeat him. From a deep black hole, a light like a shooting star sped towards him. It was Astora, unable to save Iris but determined to fulfill her last wish. Astora, with his sword piercing through the wide open eye of the Dark King, cursed him and sent him back to the earth, delivering a fatal blow that ended the saga.